WSSP Milwaukee, WXSS HD2 Wauwatosa. We're talking Bucks and Magic playoff basketball on AM 1250 and 105.7 FM, The Fan. Milwaukee, start your engines. It's time to talk about all things racing. NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and Formula One. This is the Final Inspection Show, presented by the legendary Great Lakes Dragaway in Union Grove. Now, here's your host, Steve Zocchi.
And welcome back to the Final Inspection Show, and joining us on the Great Midwest Bank Hotline from oilpressure.com, it is George Phillips. George, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and certainly a strange weekend last week, wasn't it, with the Indianapolis 500 not only being held in August, but also being held without fans. And we were talking a little bit in the first segment on just how it felt kind of odd, but not only that, but they had an extended pre-race show, and maybe they could have tightened up the show a bit, and then maybe with that, maybe they could have done more at the end of the race and done things differently. But then again, I agree. When that accident happened, I said the race was over. We had a little viewing party here at my house, and turned out I was right. I was just kind of interested to get your feelings on not only the finish and the red flag, or should there have been a red flag, but also on just the uniqueness, I guess, of the event.
Well, excuse me, to me, the most unique thing was that I was sitting on my couch at home watching it instead of actually being there, because like many people, I had a pretty good streak going, certainly nothing like everyone else, but once the race got going, it didn't seem that unusual to not see fans in the stands. I think the banners there helped. So I wasn't as taken aback by that as I was just the fact that I was not there. But, we learned of that on August 4th, and once I got about a day to get over it, I got over it, and, I just knew what it was going to be like. So getting to the end of the race, I know you and I are both traditionalists, and I think you probably know where I stand, and that's with you. I don't think there was any reason for a red flag, and certainly not in this instance. It's been very well documented. They said they were probably looking at an hour and a half to as much as 2 hours to repair the attenuator, and regardless of how tight the NBC window was, they weren't going to go another hour and a half to 2 hours. And everybody keeps talking about it was going to be a full-race shootout. No, it wasn't, because even if they got the cars on pit road immediately, these engines take a little bit to warm up. The tires had to warm back up. So you're probably looking at 2 to 3 laps under yellow getting the race going again, and then you're looking at a one-lap shootout. And that's, I guess in NASCAR, they love that, to see cars banging around at the end. In IndyCar, that's a recipe for disaster, and I saw it never even entered my mind that it would be a red flag until Paul Tracy said something about it. And I was thinking, no, it won't, and sure enough, it wasn't.
Yeah, I just don't think there was enough time. And as you said, maybe a couple laps earlier. They did the red flag when Townsend Bell hit the wall a few years ago, but I think they had 8 laps to go. And it's interesting I don't think the top 4 changed when they ran them again.
No,
so.
and even when that happened, I was not a fan, because the only reason they did that was, well, I take that back. There was a legitimate reason to red flag it, and that's because I think the safer barrier was damaged.
Right.
That is a legitimate reason. In my mind, there's only 3 reasons why a race should ever be red flagged, and that's due to inclement weather conditions, whether it's rain fog, whatnot, or an injury, or God forbid, mortality, or to repair safety equipment like the safer barrier and or the catch fencing. Other than that, for decades, the Indianapolis 500 finished under yellow in those situations, and nobody complained. Suddenly now, when everybody wants a photo finish, people are complaining about it, and I think that no one is entitled to have a race finish under the green.
Yeah, I mentioned this,
but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think there's I'd like to see if they can red flag it to finish it under green. I think they should try to, but it's not going to work in every circumstance, But it is entertainment, and the viewing audience is changing, and you have to change a bit to suit to suit them. Plus, and the pressure is on IndyCar with NASCAR, because a lot of the fans are watching Indy 500. A lot of them watch NASCAR, and they're like, well, how come they don't red flag it? So you can explain the reasoning why to, but a lot of them may not agree with it and may not care to agree with it regardless. So it is an interesting situation that happened, but happy that Sato won, Takuma Sato winning. And I brought this up too. I was kind of glad it was a repeat winner, just because it would have been kind of a bummer to see a brand new winner in victory lane. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. If a veteran like Joseph Newgarden, if he had finally won his first race, or Ed Carpenter had finally won his first race after so many years of trying, and it was in front of nobody, how empty a feeling would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly would have. And then also, were you surprised at just the Team Penske being out to lunch, it seemed like?
Well, Team Penske is, except for, did they sweep both races at Iowa? I think one was Pagenaud and one was Newgarden.
Right.
Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Except for Iowa, Team Penske has sort of been out to lunch all season. They've had their moments, but they are certainly not the Team Penske of old, and I don't know if that's just a cycle. I don't know. I mentioned this in one of my posts a few months ago, and everybody got all over me about it, but I've always said that Tim Cindric is Roger Penske's secret weapon. He's a great number two man, but I just wonder, does the absence of Roger Penske there at the pit stand overseeing everything, did that make the slightest bit of difference just to make them on top of their game, and now they're kind of falling back to a good team?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wonder, and if it is, they're in big trouble, because he's not going to be doing that anymore, is he? This weekend we got Gateway. Weekend we got Gateway, and qualifying just finished up, and it's Will Power qualifying, and they're doing the same qualifying that they did in Iowa, which I love. I love this. Whoever came up with this deserves a raise. You want to explain that to the listeners, George?
Yeah. Basically, it's still 2-lap qualifying, but the first lap determines, since there's 2 races this weekend, one today and one tomorrow. Lap 1 of your qualifying attempt determines your starting position for race 1, and then lap 2 determines it for race 2 tomorrow. And it's very simple, but it creates some interesting situations. Just like Zach Veach had just a slight bobble on his lap 1 qualifying, and consequently he's starting dead last in race 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. For those wondering, for the top 5 for race 1, we have Will Power, Pato O'Ward on the front row, and then not a surprise here with Scott Dixon continuing his strong run. Marcus Ericsson and Takuma Sato with the aforementioned Joseph Newgarden in 6 for your first 3 rows for race number 1 later this afternoon at Gateway. So a bit of a bounce back for Penske on the oval. For race 2 tomorrow, we got Takuma Sato on the pole with Joseph Newgarden on the outside of the front row. Then we have basically row 1 from the race today. It'll be row 2 tomorrow, and that's Will Power and Pato Award. And then Jack Harvey with the 5th spot, and then Scott Dixon slipping down to 6th outside of row 3 for the race tomorrow. Gateway Raceway, a little bit of a unique track, but it's basically an oval with, of course, different apexes in each corner between the north and the south corners. Any surprises you think we're going to see this weekend, or is it going to be a Dixon show?
I don't think it's going to be Scott Dixon. I don't think he's going to hang it out. I mean, he's an upper professional. He's going to have a good showing, but he's not going to do anything stupid because he does have. I'm not going to say he's going to coast, but he's going to race smart this weekend. If it's there, he'll take it. If not, he won't. That's my opinion, of course. But I tell you who I would look out for is somebody who I think had a very good Indianapolis 500. He had probably the best 500 that nobody's talking about, and that's Jack Harvey. And he very quietly today, he qualified 7th for today's race, and tomorrow he'll roll off 5th. And if you recall how bad he was at Texas, because other than Indy, I mean, that was his first time at Texas, but this was also his first time, I think it's his first time at Gateway. But he has really picked up his oval game, and I think he is very quietly having a good season.
Well, and he's such an interesting story, a guy who...
Be the best bartender on the block with the DrinkWorks Home Bar by Keurig. The DrinkWorks Home Bar makes over 30 cocktails, ciders, brews, and more at the push of a button. Here's how it works. Simply insert the pod, press start, and a perfectly poured drink is ready in under a minute. All you need is a glass and garnish with no stress or cleanup. So sip up summer with your new DrinkWorks Home Bar by Keurig. Visit drinkworks.com to order your home bar and see all the available cocktails. That's drinkworks.com. Cheers. Keurig is a registered trademark of Keurig Green Mountain Inc. Use under license. Please enjoy responsibly.
This guy's screwed. I really felt bad for him, and here he is hanging out with me and a couple friends at a charity softball game, and then they do the Indy 500 little media thing on Thursday that George and I do along with everybody else, where they set up all the drivers, and I mentioned that to him last year, and he started to laugh. He goes, "Yeah, I remember that." I said, and I go, "Jack, to be honest, I really felt bad for you because, I that has to be, that was your lowest point of your career." And he kind of it was kind of, it wasn't looking good. So to see where he is today, I'm so happy. And it's interesting. Yeah. Like you're saying, he just seems to get a little bit better every weekend, and as well as that Michael Shank Racing team, which I'm happy to see them finally going full time in the series, because they've been part-time for the last couple of years. So I'm glad that they were able to step up now this year, even though with not the best circumstances, of course. But yeah, and that's one of those kids. He's such a good guy, genuinely nice guy, approachable, everything else, and to see him starting to get some success in the IndyCar series certainly makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and he's certainly one of those that has certainly paid his dues, and I'm glad to see that he's rising up in the ranks. Although people, for the most part, still are not talking about him that much.
No, but they will start, and I've been noticing. Well, and he lives in the Indianapolis area, so he's got quite the following, in Indianapolis. And one of the guys that supported him early on was Pat Kennedy, who we lost earlier this year. Was involved with the Speedway. His family's been involved with the Speedway for many, many years, and he was a big supporter. I was kind of glad that he kind of remembered Pat with a decal in the car at the 500 this year. So we wish Jack Harvey the best of luck. Who do you like this weekend in the two races at Gateway, Jack?
Well, I picked the two that I picked for this weekend. Just in any order was Joseph Newgarden, who's already won there before, and I picked my other pick has not had a good weekend so far, and that's Graham Rahal. He was, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think he qualified 19th and 20th. I don't remember which race, but it was not good. And it may have even been worse than that, because that's what they said on the broadcast at the time when he qualified. So, Graham has not had a good weekend. So, you gotta, with Sato starting on pole, I don't think he's having the same type of, Paul Tracy mentioned this on the broadcast, the hangover that most Indianapolis 500 winners have. He is, of course, with the pandemic and all, he hasn't been doing all the running around like previous winners have, but he's, starting on pole. And one thing that I think is interesting about Sato is that I think he's sixth in the points, but he's only about 10 or 11 points away from about third in points. And if you recall, he missed the first race. He didn't start at Texas because he crashed in qualifying. So he has one less race than everybody else, yet he's just a few points out of third place.
That's interesting. Good point. That's why we have you on, George. You bring up good points like this. Thank you so much. For those, we're talking with George Phillips on the Great Midwest Bank Hotline. You want to check out his stuff at oilpressure.com. Good stuff. A lot of insightful stuff there on IndyCar racing on his website. George, we certainly appreciate you taking time out. And you ready for the Titans season to start?
I am, and I'm pretty confident they're going to have a season. They're not going to have fans at our home opener. That doesn't please me, but I think we'll have plenty in October.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm getting these email notices to renew fantasy football leagues and set draft nights and everything and I'm not anywhere close to. I haven't done any studying. It's just kind of been on the back burner. I haven't given it much thought. I'm thinking maybe I won't do any studying. Let's see if I do any worse than I usually have been doing the last couple of years. So we'll see what happens.
Normally at this point of the year in late August, I'm in the process of shifting from race mode over to football mode. Exactly. And right now, mentally, I'm still 100% race mode.
Yeah. Same here. So interesting year it certainly has been. And once again, thanks for taking time out, George. We will chat again soon.
I'm glad to do it. Thanks, Steve.
All right, thank you. That was George Phillips on the Great Midwest Bank Hotline.